This one was sent in to cornydrivethru@gmail.com from Jeff Otto.
Jeff Otto.
We brought up Lords of the Ring the other day I think last week on the drive-thru. We brought it up.
Yes, we did.
And of course, Jeff was behind that. On a recent episode of The Experience, Jim talked about going into record stores to buy 45s to create his road mixtapes. This had me wondering. Jim talked about the heat that surrounded him and the Midnight Express when they worked in Memphis, Mid-South, and the Crockett territories. The fans seemed like they could erupt into dangerous violence at any time. My question for Jim is, did that same fan hostility spill over outside of the wrestling matches? What was a typical interaction for Jim when he was shopping or out eating and fans recognized him? Were they respectful and kept their distance, or did they behave obnoxiously? Any out-of-the-ring stories from this period of time when fans encountered Jim in everyday public? And there was a question mark there. I just ended it right.
Yeah, that was about to say. And especially what was their reaction when he ended his sentences abruptly?
Any out-of-the-ring stories when fans encountered Jim in everyday public?
Yeah, well, it depended on where it was. In Louisiana, I've told many times the stories. I didn't go anywhere alone. And we lived in Alexandria, Louisiana, and bless all those folks down there today. But in 1984, Alexandria was a shithole, and there weren't that many good restaurants. Or, there was a mall, but, what the fuck? We didn't have time to go to it. That was the year that I worked over 100 days in a row without a day off, so we never went to dinner. In certain places, like when we went to the Myriad in Oklahoma City, the arena there, and all the wrestlers would get into town early and go to the fancy hotel a couple blocks down the street that had the big buffet. Well, nobody was going to start a fight with us there because it was a goddamn fancy hotel in the middle of the lobby, and it was a higher class clientele. But, if you went to the chicken place in Alexandria that was open after midnight, chances are you were going to get some wrestling fan who was going to want to fucking knock you out. So Dennis Condrey got jumped by a guy in a 7-Eleven, a convenience store. One night, just sucker punched him, mad that we had fucked the rock and roll. And Dennis beat shit out of him. And he actually didn't beat shit out of him. He backhanded the guy and knocked him over a display of canned goods, broke his own gold bracelet by backhanding the guy. Knocked him out with the backhand, threw $100 bill on the fucking counter so the cashier wouldn't call the cops, and took off with the beer. But, so it just depended on the territory and it depended on the place you were at. But in a lot of cases, no, you didn't go, at least I didn't go places when I was a heel that I knew if I was alone, I was going to have an issue. And then one of the biggest goddamn deals, when we had switched babyface, and it was the spring of '89 in WCW, and Heyman's the fucking heel now, right? I'm the babyface, but I'm in Savannah, Georgia. I'm getting gas, and I stopped to use the payphone because that's where you had to do such things back then before the cell phones. And I was calling home, and a guy at the convenience store recognized me. And he's on another one of the phones, and I hear him talking loud. Yeah, this fucking good, blah, blah, blah. What the fuck? And so I hang the phone up, and I'm ready to get back in the car. And he hadn't got the memo that I'm a babyface. He hadn't been watching TV like, you motherfucker, why don't you wait a while? My brother's coming down. I mean, that was what it was. My brother's coming down here. He had called his brother. Come down here, at fucking Cornette's down here. I said, well, I ain't waiting on your brother. And I'm in my car, right? He said, well, fuck you. And I said, fuck your brother, right? And I start to fucking pull off. And when I pull up, he runs up and he kicks the fucking door of my car. So I'm like, I've already started pulling off. Oh, you motherfucker. So I fucking put it into fucking reverse, and I'm backing up. I'm going to goddamn go have a fucking talk with this guy for kicking my car door. But as I fucking back up and screech to a stop, he's reaching in his pocket. Well, I'm like, oh, fuck, he's got a knife. Fuck it. It ain't worth that. I start to pull off again. As I fucking start to pull off again, he comes out with a pencil and a piece of paper or something. He's writing my license number down. So I'm like, fuck you. I back up again. This time when he's standing in front of his car, I backed up and he fucking jumped out of the way and I backed into his fucking car. Boom. And then I took off, right? And then I got home and I said, he was writing down my license plate. This was in Georgia. So I called Doug Dillinger, who was not only a cameraman and head of security for Jim Crockett, but also had been a Charlotte police officer. That's how he got the job. And I said, do I have any complaints on me in Georgia from last night or night before last or whatever? And he called me back. He said, no, I don't think he got all your license down, evidently. So fuck him. He got a dented fender. I didn't give a shit about my car. It was beat up anyway. But he shouldn't have said fuck me or kicked my door. I only said fuck your brother in response to the fuck me that I got from him. So, well, fuck you and your brother. Well, there you go.
Have you ever had a car that you cared about enough that you wouldn't ram?
Yeah, I'd like to say the one, Black Beauty, the one I've got now, but there's been a couple of instances where I was like, I just dream about it when I'm stopped in some of these traffic schmozzes. But no, don't fence me in. Don't put baby in a corner. Because when I'm in a place that I can't leave freely, I tend to be on high alert at all times. That's why I'm always a nervous wreck in places like New York where you can't park in a lot at your hotel and have access to your car and all this shit. If I'm not at a place where I can freely exit whenever I want to, then I'm a bit high strung, and sometimes these things can happen.
Well, let's get baby out of the corner. I have another question here, Jim. This kind of relates to the last one, so it's perfect timing. This was sent in thecornydrivethru@gmail.com from John in Greensboro, North Carolina. My cousin told me once about a time he got to go to the Greensboro Coliseum for Jim Crockett Promotions Wrestling when I didn't get to go. And I don't know if he made it up to fuck with me or not, but it sounded too legit to be made up. Can Jim confirm this if he remembers? It was probably around the summer of 1986. My cousin supposedly witnessed this outside when he and our buddies were hanging out to watch the wrestlers leave. Here's what he told me. Big Bubba left the Coliseum parking lot in a van, and a bunch of kids pounded on it when he drove by. He then turned around, parked, and went back inside the Coliseum. Bobby then came out with Dennis, and I'm assuming Jim also. And according to my cousin, Bobby was driving a white Taurus that looked brand new. Bobby then, allegedly, yelled at the kids, "If any of you motherfuckers punch my car, I'll kick your fucking ass." Listening to the podcast and having met Bobby myself, he seems to be the kindest, most soft-spoken guy ever. It has made me question the validity of this story decades later. Jim, any recollection of this? If so, could you please once and for all set my mind at ease? I was supposed to go with my cousin and some guys from school that night, but since I couldn't go, I think maybe now my cousin spiced up the adventure to rub my nose in it. There's no way Bobby called the kids motherfuckers, right?
Well, there is some spice to your story, but the spices have been mislabeled. Because Bubba had a van back then, and my God, when you were driving Bubba's van down the interstate, I don't know when it had last been serviced. I don't know how many miles it had on it at that point. I don't know what was going on with it. But when you were driving down the interstate, that fucking van, it shook and it shimmied and it rattled until you got to about 75 miles an hour. And then suddenly, if you could go 75, it smoothed out and it's like you weren't even touching the road. It was beautiful. But if you got below 75, it was like the thing was falling apart in pieces underneath you. So anyway, Bubba did have a van. Bobby did not drive a white Taurus, brand new. As a matter of fact,
what did you drive?
Well, I had a Taurus, but hold on. I had a Taurus, but I didn't have the Taurus at that time because I was going to say that it was probably me because my Taurus was a very pale blue, almost a silverish type, but you would have mistaken it possibly, but I don't know if I had my Taurus at that point. But here's the fucking thing. I can believe that I would have said, hey, you fucking asshole kids, don't punch my car. I'll beat the fuck out of you. But it is also a noted rib in the wrestling business to point out somebody else's car and then say, because Bobby never had a Taurus of any kind. Bobby did have a big white Lincoln, but it wasn't brand new. It was from the 70s, but it's a common occurrence. Hey, you motherfuckers, see that car right over there? Don't you dare touch that car. I'll kick your ass. And that would be the babyface's car. But I'm not saying that that's what was done in this. I don't really know. That was not, none of those things were an unusual enough occurrence, except Bobby yelling at people out in public. That's an unusual occurrence. But I do not know.
Have you heard Bobby use motherfucker?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, Bobby Eaton is the first one that I heard say one of my favorite sayings. Motherfucker I may be, but the mother I fuck belongs to thee. Of course, it took him longer to say it than I just did.
I can't picture Bobby Eaton saying that based on the Bobby Eaton I've seen on TV for all these years.
Well, he opened up when you got him in the back seat of the car. Sort of like many other people we used to run into in the wrestling business in the 80s. They'd really open up once you got them in the back seat of the car.
I have a follow-up question on that. No, I won't do that.